Can you hear me? There we go. Okay, we're going to get started because I know lunch is right after this, so we'll get you out on time. My name is Nancy Sakabason. I'm a member of the Passamaquoddy Tribe of Maine, and I work at EPA Region 9 in the Water Division. The three of us are going to be presenting today, so I'll have everyone introduce themselves before we start.
Can everyone hear me? I have kind of a bigger voice. Okay, cool. I'm Tom. I'm the Director of Public...
Microphone, because there are people online.
Oh, I gotcha. All right, bear with me here. That's the first time I've used a microphone. So I'm Tom. I'm the Director of Public Works for Big Valley Rancheria.
My name is John Gichuki, and I'm a Public Works Director for Tule River Tribe of California. Formerly, for 13 years, I worked for Big Valley Rancheria, so working together.
Okay, I'm going to start with our presentation. Do you guys want to? Yeah, and I can come up. I'm going to start with just a presentation of some of our EPA water infrastructure programs. I'm going to try to reserve most of the time for these two who have done these projects on their tribal lands and who have used our resources. So I want to spend most of the time letting them talk to you about leveraging resources and also putting these projects into action. So I will start first. So we'll start, like I said, with the funding opportunities that we have for both, for drinking water first. We'll talk about a drinking water project that's been done at the Big Valley Rancheria. And then I'll talk about some of our clean water projects and our programs. And then John will talk about a project that he's recently started or is getting started on for the Tule River. And we can provide some additional resources at the end. Just a little bit about our total funding available. This is on a national picture. We have a lot of bill funding. This is the new bill funding that we have. This has been awarded since 2022 and will go through 2026. More specifically, in Region 9, this is the amount of funding that we've had this year that we awarded. We're still in the process of awarding some of these funds, but we have emerging contaminant programs for both clean water and drinking water. We have a supplement for both clean water and drinking water as well. And we have a program to address lead service lines on reservations. And then we also have some other underserved community grants that we're working on. So just a little bit about our kind of one of our main programs. This program has been we've had this program for what, 20 years or so. This program will continue after that 2026. So important to talk about this program. Our drinking water tribal set-aside program. This is for funding for public water systems in tribal communities. The general eligibilities are just for tribes for this program. It's a set-aside from the SRF program. To be eligible for programs, you do need to have a certified operator prior to award of funding. If you're doing a construction project, we need a PER. And then there are some technical financial capability that we'll ask for as well. And just for your information, the drinking water program has a health-based prioritization. It's different than the SDS system that you might be familiar with. So that's the system that we use to fund projects. And just some general eligibility, the types of projects that we fund. So we can rehabilitate and develop sources. We can install and replace transmission lines. A few things that we can't do, compliance monitoring. Oh, sorry. Sure. So what we try to do is fund projects in the planning stages first before we go to construction. So the plan will need to be, the project will need to be fully scoped, planned before we go to the design phase and then the construction phase. Okay, and then these are just some of the new build programs. We have two programs for drinking water set aside, emerging contaminants. The first is just the primary purpose is for emerging contaminants that are in drinking water. And we have an emphasis on PFAS. The second program is a small and disadvantaged communities grant. So basically the eligibilities are the same, except for the fact that the system has to serve 10,000 individuals or less. And then the lead service line program, all of these programs that I'm discussing today you can apply through one grant application or one proposal form, and I'll provide that information at the end. The lead service line is the one that's a little bit different. We have a streamlined process for that, and the process is a little bit different, but I'll provide some resources on how to do that. Just some eligible activities for the emerging contaminants programs. Sorry. So you can, completing pre-development activities for PFAS and other emerging contaminants, developing project planning proposals, things like that, as well as construction. If there's a emerging contaminant found and there's a treatment method that needs to be instituted, we can put those into place as well and fund those projects. For the disadvantaged communities grants, mostly all of the same projects can be funded, and we can also fund laboratory testing equipment for that program. For lead service line, we're funding projects kind of in three categories. So we have the lead service line inventory. You may be familiar with the requirement that we had that all utilities had to have a lead service line or service line inventory completed by October 16th. So that deadline has just passed. And what we're trying to do now is address some of the unknown service lines that might be out there. So that is one of the projects that we're funding. And then obviously, if you find lead in any of your service lines, we can pay to have those replaced. And then there's also some other eligible activities like technical assistance and consumer education for those programs as well. And we have two other programs, just two programs under the WIN Act 2104 funding. These eligibilities are similar to what I described for the drinking water program. But again, these projects have to serve less than 10,000 individuals. And for the WIN 2105 funding, it's another program to reduce lead in drinking water. And those are for PWSs on tribal communities. And those projects can only be funded through IAs at the moment. So we wouldn't be able to issue a grant at this time. And then just some of the projects that are eligible under this program. And then just lastly, for these programs for drinking water, I just wanted to highlight that we are currently soliciting projects. The solicitation went out in September. You all should have received that. If you haven't, feel free to reach out to me. And projects will be due on December 6th. Again, for all of these programs, except for the lead program that I just mentioned, you can submit one application and we can help you figure out which funding source best meets your project goals. So we anticipate projects by December 6th. We'll do some reviews, send out initial rankings for those projects, ask for some more information, and hopefully have some final rankings, usually by April, sometimes later into July, and have those grants awarded by next year, September. I'm going to hand things over now to Thomas to talk a little bit about their project that they leverage both EPA and other agency funding for.
Awesome. Cool. So it's just, wait. So it's just that.
Just that one, yeah.
All right, cool. Hello again. I'm Tom, Director, Big Valley. So what we have here. There we are. There I am. So brand new building, brand new 260,000 gallon drinking water storage tank. So quick little bit about the tribe. The tribe was first recognized in 1936, lost its tribal status in 1963. After a court order in 1983, the tribe regained recognition and reconstituting its rights back, plus a little over 400 acres of land. It has a casino that was established in 1994. In 1999, a master use plan was put into action with the water treatment plant going in 2002, a housing subdivision in 2005, as well as a smoke shop, mission-grown medicinals, and an internet lending business. They sit on Clear Lake, which is the biggest natural lake in California, as well as one of the oldest lakes. One of the big things Clear Lake is renowned for is bass fishing. If there's any outdoorsmen out outdoor ladies out there. Worth the stop. It's ranked top 5 in Bass Masters every year, as well as catfishing and crappie. So just little local knowledge for you guys. Big Valley Rancheria's population, little over 1,000, with 400 members currently living on the reservation. Big Valley Rancheria Water District has 2 treatment systems and an on-site wastewater facility. There's 44 homes in the subdivision, as well as economic development. So there's hotel, casino, there's a marina, and RV park, and also coming soon, a Starbucks. It's pretty exciting. So quick overview. The old water treatment plant system used potassium permanganate, green sand, GAC, so granular activated carbon, sodium hydroxide, and orthophosphate. The water quality issues that the tribe faced were high levels of ammonia. So the big compare and contrast, I'm going to kind of jump forward to the new treatment system real quick, is the ammonia removal process. So with the high levels of ammonia, they didn't have a real way to get rid of it outside of just nuking it with chlorine. So over here in parentheses, it's a 10-to-1 ratio. So every 1 milligram, or sorry, 1 part per million of ammonia, you had to treat it with 10 parts per million of chlorine, which turns into a lot really quick. Lead and copper issues. So the source water was also high carbon dioxide with a low pH. Well, everything was built early 2000s before, a lot of just copper lines for plumbing. Low pH, creating copper issues. Excess of iron in the water, excess of manganese, not a pleasant color. Well, really any color in your water is not very pleasant. So, and then hardness resulting in scaled up fixtures, try and wash your car, it's spotty, just no bueno. A little bit more in depth. So, you know, going back to the pH, we're looking at a range of 6.3 to 7.2. There's the CO2 again, high ammonia levels, really high iron, manganese, hard water, kind of went through the water quality issues that go with that. So this was, they did a pilot to see, okay, what's exactly going on and where do we need to be? So this is the results from the pilot testing, same numbers I had just told you. And so now this is the range that we're hunting for. It's like, okay, pH standard needs to be more than an 8. CO2 needs to be less than 10 milligrams a liter to give us some control over the pH. We want to get ammonia to below a 0.5, iron below a 0.15, manganese a 0.02, and total hardness somewhere between a 90 and 120. More on the pilot. So treating water, so they broke it down into 4 stages. Reducing ammonia, removing the iron and manganese, softening the water, corrosion control, and then additional storage as well. So this is just kind of inline the treatment process. So the air injection and the ammonia removal is stage 1. It's a biological ammonia removal. If there's any wastewater people here, it's also a bioreactor. Moving on to stage 2, which is the iron iron and manganese removal. So there's 2 stages to that. There's an initial stage and a polish. And we'll get in more into that here in a little bit. And then it goes from the iron and manganese removal to the water softeners, and then from the water softeners to the bubbler, where it removes the CO2, and then from the bubblers, there's little transfer pumps into the storage tank. So, stage 1, reducing ammonia. So, there is biologically activated carbon. This is actually probably my favorite part of the treatment process. So the granular activated carbon in this case is made of coconut shells. It's compressed charcoal made of coconut shells. And in these coconut shells live these little bugs or microbial bacteria that eat the ammonia. So now we're removing ammonia with live organisms as opposed to chemicals, and a lot of chemicals. So they eat the ammonia. They essentially, this is going to be a very crude explanation, but it's very to the point. So they eat ammonia and fart nitrogen. Off gases, good to go. So, I lost my place. Okay, so biological filters using dissolved oxygen to feed microbe, the bacteria to remove the ammonia. So the way it works is water comes up in through the well. I did my best to take some pictures, but we have about this much room in between the back of our filter and where the air gets injected into the water. So the water comes in and goes through this guy. That's air gas separator. And what it does is, because we're infusing a bunch of air in there, so the water comes in at about 4 parts per million dissolved oxygen, and it leaves. We try and keep it around a 16, makes the bugs happy. And what that guy does there is it separates the big air bubbles, anything that could potentially jam up the treatment process from the dissolved oxygen that we actually want in the water. So it goes from there into these filters here. So, and everything comes in, we're treating everything at 100 gallons a minute. So, and there's 4 vessels there. All 4 vessels are online at the same time. So we have roughly 25 gallons a minute going through each vessel. So runs through these vessels. And the amazing thing about this, on the start of a plant, there's always surprises. And there's a very pleasant surprise with this is it comes out to 60 to 70% of our iron removal also happens in this stage, which was really awesome. So this is the workhorse of our treatment process right now. So the water comes in, does its thing. After, I think we have it set for every 8,000 gallons, it does a backwash. And when it backwashes, it's cool. It backwashes 1 unit at a time, keeping the other 3 online. So we're able to produce water while we're backwashing, so there's no shutdown time. This backwashes at roughly, I think we have it set for 20 gallons a minute. You have to be careful because the granular activated carbon, our filter media, is very light, and you have to be, there's a fine line in between getting an appropriate backwash and washing out your media. So that's one thing to be mindful for. But after that, so it goes through here, and then there's a little thing poking out right there. That's our chlorination. So we have a pre and post chlorination. That does our initial disinfectant, our big disinfectant. So it goes from there to the actual iron and manganese removal process. These guys are These guys are filled with a media called pyrolite. What makes this awesome compared to conventional green sand are two big things. The biggest one, again, you don't need chemical. Traditionally, you had to use, it was potassium permanganate. It's not fun to work with. It's expensive. It's just kind of no bueno across the board. And then the other big thing to this is it's actually a lighter media, so it takes less water to backwash. As an operator and a manager of a water system, that's huge, because now I don't have a chemical bill, and now we're not wasting any water, because when this backwashes, the majority of the time, unless you have a retreat process, your backwash water goes to waste. So it's a stage one. So stage one, everything comes in. Do I have that in my notes, or is it? It's on another slide. Okay. So this does, so if we have, for example, we'll use easy numbers. So like 3 parts per million of iron and manganese coming in, we'll have about 1.5 to 1 leaving that goes to the polish. It's the exact same thing. It goes through the polish, and we typically have a non-detect amount of iron and manganese when we leave. So it's usually like 0.009 parts per million, or in this one, if we have like a 0.01 to 0.02, it's time for a backwash. Water softening. The most impressive thing about this and the design about this thing is not just that it makes soft water, and this was, I can't give John G enough credit. This guy ran a marathon. I just got to cross the finish line. And one of the amazing things about this too is when they designed this plan is they were very health conscious of their community. They have an older community. There's some health issues. So this big black tank over here is the brine solution that regenerates the whole thing. And typically, if anyone's familiar with water softeners, you use a sodium-based product for everything. So this actually uses, sorry, I got to peek at my notes here. Water softener, yeah, potassium chloride, thank you. So we're, because we already treat with sodium hyperchlorite, so we're already putting salt out there. We don't need to put any more salt. So we had a range of water hardness, ballpark around 300 milligrams per liter coming in. We have about 100 to 110 going out. This is the bubbler. So this is the workhorse for pH. Like I said, we had roughly like anywhere from a 6 to 6.5 coming in. And leaving this thing is an 8.2 to an 8.5. And again, they were using orthophosphate as corrosion control for pH, pipe scaling. And again, it's another chemical that doesn't have to be used. Now we're using air instead of more chemicals. So something this amazing, of course, is not free. And these were the funding sources used and the funds generated for this plant. All in all, it came out to a little over 7.2 million. The USDA water and wastewater loans grants were provided to waste disposal security services, low-income rural areas, and residents who are experiencing significant health risks. The second USD grant was 3.1 million, part of the Biden Infrastructure Law bill. Excuse me. The EPA Had 2 grants with some help from IHS, the Drinking Water Infrastructure Grant, Tribal Set-Aside Drinking Water Program, and Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation. And then the BOR, Bureau of Reclamation, Native American Affairs Bureau of Reclamation was the website. Indian Health Services pitched in. And then, yeah, came out to a total of a little over 7.2. So here's the raw data. October 10th, we had everything dialed in, up and running. So coming into the plant before anything happens, we were about an 8.8 for iron and iron, 0.093 for manganese, 1 milligram per liter of ammonia, 6.2 on pH. Dissolved oxygen at a 6, water hardness at 310, and turbidity at 2.0. That number's actually changed. I got a hold of a little better equipment. The city of Lakeport, which is the municipality just down the road from us, let us borrow their benchtop turbidimeter, so raw water turbidity is more around an 8. Post-treatment data, after it's ran through everything, 0 iron, 0 manganese, 0 ammonia, pH is about an 8.5, our chlorine residual going into the tank was a 1.1. Total water hardness was 110 milligrams per liter, and the turbidity is a 0.103, which surpasses any drinking water standard. I think the EPA has a drinking water standard of a 1. I worked in a surface treatment water plant that treated Clear Lake surface water. They were a non-conventional plant. They were held to a higher standard of a 0.3, and which is the toughest standard that I have seen for drinking water in terms of turbidity. And we even surpassed that, which I think is pretty neat. And then we also went out after a big flush. Let's see what's going on with our distribution system. And 0 iron, 0 manganese, 0 ammonia, hanging on with our pH at an 8.5, 0.82 milligrams per liter for chlorine, water hardness at a 110. These are our new booster pumps. These things are awesome. We have a maxed flow. We can crank out 450 gallons a minute if need be. But we usually only run one at a time. They all run off pressure. We keep about 75 PSI in the distribution system. Oops. Water treatment solutions. This is kind of more of what I just went through. So next up, we're going to keep testing, keep dialing our treatment process. And up next is going after and cleaning up our distribution system. This isn't a picture from us, but we had the old storage tank cleaned out, and that's not too far off. So that's what's on the horizon for us. That's all I got. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you want to give me a microphone. I'm not great at projecting, but I can try. Thank you.
Oh,
You might need it back. It might be a silly question. I'm not a professional in this industry, but I live close to Lake Tahoe, and the universities near me are doing a lot of research about microplastic contamination. Lake Tahoe is the 3rd ranking most contaminated lake out of 38 lakes in the world, even though it's pristine water. And I wonder if in your data collection and in your goals, you also have this type of contaminants included in the goal for reducing it and cleaning it in the water.
So quick answer, no. We looked at the immediate, what do we know is affecting us, but moving forward, because I know like PFAS and there's other emerging issues in water quality down the road, yes, we will move that way. And if you don't mind, if we exchange information after this, I'd like to learn more about what you do on your end. Because I would have never guessed Lake Tahoe being, what'd you say, number 3 for most contaminated? And microplastic, that is unreal. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is that still high because that's the natural level of your source water? The ammonia, the 1 milligram per liter is 1 ppm. That's the natural source in your ground, in your water source.
Yes, ma'am. Comes straight out of the ground like that.
That's really wow.
John G.
I just want to say something. I spent some time, I'm a chemist and I'm the one who did most of the analysis that you see there. So the ammonia is natural and it's because of the bedrock is a volcanic origin. So the bedrock is volcanic. So it comes in with a lot of gases. And one of the gases is ammonia. The other gas you have seen there is carbon dioxide. So those ones have to be taken out because they create all these problems we are talking about. I want to thank actually EPA. They supported us right from the beginning because of the corrosion control issues we had there at Big Valley Rancheria. So I leave it to Tom to continue, but basically we have a long history of working with EPA and other donor agencies, and they understood there was a serious health risk because of corrosion control. We had to take care of it because there was lead and copper exceedances in the system. So we had to be in compliance with the lead and copper rule. So that's how we came up with this, and EPA was very helpful in terms of helping us to navigate through and create the sort of water you are seeing today. Everybody is excited about the water now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. One more for right now. Who's got it? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say, me and Jennifer here, we're from the USDA, so we're actually the co-funders of this project. You probably worked with Quinn Donovan in the past. You know, we just wanted to say this project all started with a search grant. And, you know, these are kind of, you know, funding sources you can apply for, and we can co-fund with EPA, IHS, BIA, CDBG, you know, state funding sources as well to get these done. And basically the search grant was just pre-planning documents. And then it led to this huge project where we funded a little bit over $4 million. So, you know, these things are ways that we can help you guys. And also, if you don't fall into our tribal set-aside, you're still eligible for our normal program. So, you know, I have cards and we can exchange information after this. Just kind of plug in us. We didn't want to take too much away from you guys, but we don't have a presentation of our own, and this is great.
And I want to thank USDA profusely. We worked alongside Quinn Donovan. He was very great. So I think it's very good opportunity for anybody who is looking for funding. USDA is great. They did a lot to help us on this particular project. Thank you.
We may have some more time at the end for some more questions. I just wanted to get to the other presentations. And as you can see, like, even if you have a really big project that you think that one funding source may not be able to fund, leveraging these resources from several different agencies and maybe tribal resources and other resources, it is possible to get some of these projects done. So, well, if you can switch to my presentation, but I can just get started. So we have a couple of clean water projects that we are currently funding. We have the Clean Water Indian Set-Aside Program, which is our base program. We have some supplemental funding as well through bill, but this program can fund, is for all federally recognized tribes. The funding can be used for planning, design, construction. And just to point to your question earlier about the PERs, we can fund PERs too. So if you're not quite ready to go to construction because that needs to be done, you can submit a project for planning, and we can do that for both drinking water and wastewater. For our wastewater projects, oops. For our wastewater projects, the projects do need to be listed on SDS, the IHS Sanitation Deficiency System list, and we will fund projects from there. We'll basically work with IHS to look at the prioritization and figure out which projects to fund. No matching funds for these awards, though. Sure.
Funding, is that through the same grant or is that through a different source funding?
It's through the same program, the same grant program. So if you have a project, even if you have a project on SDS and it's not quite ready for construction yet, IHS kind of tiers their projects. Tier 1 are projects that are ready to fund construction. Tier 2 might be those that need additional planning. If IHS isn't able to fund the planning for those, EPA can also fund the planning for those. And that's the same case for our drinking water as well. If you have a project that's not quite ready for construction that needs to be more fully developed, submit a proposal to us and we can fund that planning project. And these are just some of the eligible types of projects that we can fund. So we can do both sewer, lagoon type projects, but we can also do on-site wastewater treatment, septic systems, those types of projects as well. A new project or program that we have is the Clean Water Indian Set-Aside Emerging Contaminant Funding. This is a program that was started in 2022. We've just recently gotten access to the funding, and we're currently going through consultation on how to award funding for that program, and we're just finishing that up, and we should have a new solicitation out soon. We're going to be accepting projects on a rolling basis, so whenever you have a project, you can submit to our program, and we can fund those projects. We just need projects that will be addressing a specific emerging contaminant that's generally eligible. So that basically means like the general eligibility is like stormwater projects. We can do wastewater treatment projects, things like that. And we need to see that eventually the project will result in a water quality benefit. So we may do some sampling first and maybe some planning, and then eventually the construction of that would be addressing an emerging contaminant. These projects for the clean water emerging contaminants do not need to be on SDS. And just some examples of the projects that we can fund. We're probably going to start with a lot of investigation, sampling. There's less data out there for wastewater, on the wastewater side for emerging contaminants. So we're going to start with projects like that. And I just wanted to mention this program really quickly too, because this project, this is new. We've gone out once with a solicitation. We got 2 proposals for this program. One was funded with other funding sources, and the other project is a project that John has submitted to us, and he's going to talk a little bit more about that project now.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk quickly about leveraging resources for tribal drinking water and wastewater infrastructure projects, because I participated in the Big Valley project on leveraging resources. So I'm going to talk about some of the other areas other than EPA that you could quickly get funding to do your projects. So the first one I think has already been, Nancy has already talked about that, the water infrastructure improvement for the nation, which is called YWWN. And this one is already captured by Nancy. So I'm going to talk about the Clean Water Indian Set Aside, which is QUISA, and that's where we are getting most of the funding for the emerging contaminants. The other funding is the Drinking Water Set Aside. So we got some funding on that one, and I put in the link for it so that you people can look at it, but it's already been talked about by Nancy. The other one I'm going to talk about is the US Department of Agriculture. I'm excited to see USDA staff here. So there was great support from them. We went all through all the stages, starting from the search grant, all the way to the funding. So actually, a preliminary engineering report is required for this. And beyond a preliminary engineering report, you need to do a NEPA. After the NEPA, you need to do a design. So once the design is ready, you pass it on to the contractors and they do the project. You go ahead with your project. So these are the stages that you have to follow to get this kind of funding. The next one is the IHS funding. I think they have talked about it, the SDS ranking, scattered sites projects. There is a lot of funding you can get from that. So the other one, which is a major donor here, they have not talked about it, where we are getting a lot of funding, is the Bureau of Reclamation. Bureau of Reclamation has a lot of funding. Recently, they put in a call for a proposals for up to $5 million for planning and design, and up to $80 million for construction. It's called the Domestic Water Project. So other than EPA, you can leverage resources from other donors like the Bureau of Reclamation. And then I'm going to talk quickly about some technical assistance that you can get. One of the major assistant providers is Rural Community Assistance Corporation. So if you are looking for training, you are looking for resources, they work very closely with the State Water Resources Control Board. So you are looking for technical documents that are required to be able to make an application. For example, if you are applying for a project from USDA, you need to have some paperwork ready. One of the paperwork that is required is an emergency response plan, or at what they call a TMF, technical, managerial, and financial capacity. So all those documents you can work with Rural Community Assistance Corporation, and they provide you that information. So the other one is the California Rural Water Association. There's a lot of funding. California Rural Water Association will work with the State Water Resources Control Board, and you can do a lot of preparation projects. For example, the NEPA, for example, all these technical documents that we are talking about, they are very critical. So I'm going to talk about, and the other one is the Intertribal Council of Arizona. There's a lot of funding resources also there in terms of training for people, especially people who are working in the water sector. So I'm going to move quickly to the project that we are working on now. I moved out of Big Valley Rancheria, and I'm now working for Tule River. And we started working because of the networking I've had with EPA. So we started looking at new projects. So they called out a project on emerging contaminants, and we did the application. And now we are working through this particular project on the emerging contaminants in wastewater. So this is the call that came out. You may have seen it. It was in the newspapers. It was all over the place. They talked about, so we made an application, and we have gotten some funding. So Tule River Tribe of California is a sovereign nation that honors culture, and it has a lot of socioeconomic development going on. It has 56,000 acres of land out of Tulare County, near Fresno, and it's the second largest tribe in California after Yurok. So the key natural resources, it has surface and groundwater resources. It has vegetation resources. So the national monument, the Square National Park, is located, part of it is located on the tribal reservation. And then there's other archaeological resources there. So it's a very critical tribe, and it has quite a lot of resources to look at. So these are several of the natural resources that you see there. So this is the Square National Park. And then there are quite a number of other resources. It has rivers, it has forest, it has rangelands. So basically the way we are doing it is that it has 2 public water systems and 1 wastewater system, which is a membrane bioreactor system. So it produces tertiary treated water. And one of the major issues is that in the recent past, in the river, Tule River, then we have started seeing some cyanobacteria blooms there, and they think that could be, in the future, there'll be cyanotoxins in the system. So we want to see how we can take care of that. So the way we are going to handle it is that So the main objective is to look at the PFAS in the system, because previous studies that have been done, they have identified PFAS in the well water systems, and then there is also the harmful algal blooms out of the Tule River. So basically what we are going to do is that we're going to look at the cyanobacteria blooms, and especially we are also going to look at the cyanotoxins. And when I talk about cyanotoxins, I'm talking about microcystin, pomopsin, saxitoxin, and anafloxacin A. And we are going to look at all those and PFAS in the Tule River. We are going to look at the influent, effluent, and then the biosolids. So basically, this is the plan that we are putting together with the EPA. So basically, we are going to start with developing QAPP, Quality Assurance Project Plans, and sampling action plans, and then systematically over a 2-year period. So we are going to be working with the contractors who will help us out. And basically, in 2 years, then we should be able to sample. We are going to be sampling monthly on the PFAS and the cyanobacteria and harmful algal blooms in the system. And basically, this is how it is. There is quite a bit of detail in how you are supposed to handle it, but these are some of the basic components of the new project that we are working on. So thank you very much.
We do have some time for questions. If you want to switch to my presentation, there's some resources there. Does anyone have questions for John?
Hi, I'm Leslie Cleveland, and I'm with the Bureau of Reclamation. So I just wanted to tell John, thank you so much for sharing about the tribal water opportunities that we have. It just closed, but it is opening again, and sharing about the $5 million and the different planning aspects of that. So mine wasn't really a question, but to share that I'm here also if you have any questions. I'm with the Temecula office, so we're right here with the Region 9 tribes as well.
Yeah, I want to thank Bureau of Reclamation a lot, because we got a lot of funding during the times when we had huge fires out of Lake County. Then they provided us with a grant for generators. One of the wells that the tribe put up was funded by Bureau of Reclamation. So we have been getting a lot of funding when I was at Big Valley Rancheria. And now I'm on Tule River. We have already applied for the domestic water project. We are very optimistic that we are going to succeed. So the EPA, yes, there's focus on EPA, but focus on Bureau of Reclamation, focus on USDA too. There are major sources of funding other than EPA.
I know we went through all of those resources very quickly, but all of these presentations are on the Excel events. So go back to those, look at the websites, the links, and the contacts and stuff. So that's all available to you. We just wanted to focus on how tribes are using the funding at this point in time. I think there were a couple of other.
I also had a comment. Hi, John. Jane Gray with DUDAC. John and I worked on a project in Big Valley. Nice to see you. I'm here as a contractor with the Department of Water Resources. There's a table outside. And DWR is also providing technical assistance services to California tribes in SGMA regulated basins, so basins that are subject to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. So you can visit the table outside. There's also those technical assistance programs for hydrology, engineering reports, PERs, and other things. Thanks.
It sounds like John's done a really good job of making contacts and leveraging funding. So talk to John, because he's got this all down. One more question over here.
So I have a question about the water. Did you find, what was the temperature increase in the water for the cyanobacteria bloom to occur? Do you know?
Yeah, it's looking that as the temperatures, initially there was no cyanobacteria blooms in Tule River. It is a very clean river, but with climate change now, I think it has something to do with the increasing temperatures now. And we find the cyanobacteria blooms are coming up during summer when it's very hot. So we think it has something to do with climate change, but we are not very certain about it. Once we get into the project itself, then we'll know what's exactly going on.
Have you also experienced a decrease in the flows?
Yeah, I think in terms of flows of the Tule River, sometimes it dries up. You know, the cyclic pattern of drought in California. I think it has been impacting on the Tule River as well. So there are times when the river dries up. This time, the last 2 seasons have been very good, but we don't know. The coming season is looking interesting because we are supposed to be having rains now. There are no rains, so all these things, yeah. So many things are happening. We don't know. We don't know even what is going to happen in the near future. But I think it's now cyclic. There are periods of drought and periods of heavy rains. So they are alternating between that.
One more question. Right here, and then we can go there.
Are you considering cyanobacteria to be an emerging contaminant? Could we qualify for that?
Yes. Yeah, we've gone through the consultation process, and the key contaminants that are coming up for a lot of tribes are cyanotoxins, PFAS, 6-PPDE, the tire chemical. Actually, I think there's a presentation tomorrow about that, some of the work EPA is doing. So yes, those are all emerging contaminants that we could consider under the Clean Water Program. And drinking water too, yes.
I don't know if this applies to Thomas, but I just wanted to ask a question. Will you be working with the Pomo tribe for the sulfur bank mine, or just on cleaning up that Superfund?
So I will not be, but I believe the tribe may. Sarah Ryan is the head of the EPA department for the tribe, and she's pretty hands-on with things that happen locally in that area. If you'd like her contact information,
Yes.
I can get that to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, and before I let you go, I just wanted to introduce you to a couple of other folks in the room, in the back there. I'll give them a warning before I call them out. Our other project officers for all of these infrastructure programs, we have Amita is here. Amita works with tribes in Northern and Central California. We're kind of separated by IHS areas too, because we work with them so closely. And then we have Maddie Tango, who works in Southern California. Sarah McGilloway, is she? She's not here. And then Emma, who works in Eastern Arizona. Yeah, Eastern Arizona. So if you work in those areas, reach out to these folks. Adam Ramos works with Navajo Nation. Sarah McGilloway works with Reno and Western Arizona. So reach out to us if you have any questions about any of these programs for EPA that we saw today. And then just real quickly, we have IHS contacts in this presentation as well, if you want to reach out to them. And we have a drinking water conference coming up in April. Carly Ho, who is the manager of our tribal drinking water section, is here as well. And then Emmanuel Rapacavali, who's the manager of our tribal infrastructure section. And then lastly, there's one more resource for you all. And this is a federal funding, Fed funds, more information about all of the funding sources we've talked about today, and maybe even some additional resources. So thank you all for coming. And